People like you don't stay here.
Check my reservation, please. Sir, her name is listed.
Take her outside right now.
Read section 14.3.
Wait, let me verify first.
I own Regal Crown Hotels. No, that can't be true.
Please tell me this is a mistake.
Get out of my hotel before I call security. Ethan Brooks said it loud enough for the whole lobby to hear. Then he snatched the black credit card from Angela Carter's hand and dropped it onto the marble floor. The sound was small. The silence after it was not. Angela stood at the front desk of the Regal Crown Hotel in downtown Chicago, dressed in faded jeans, a plain white shirt, and canvas sneakers softened by years of use. A worn leather messenger bag hung from her shoulder. She looked tired, not lost, not desperate, just tired in the way people look after a long flight and too many hours of work. But Ethan did not see a guest. He saw an assumption. He placed the toe of his polished Oxford shoe on the card and pressed down. Hard. The black metal scraped against the marble. Angela's eyes moved from his shoe to his face. She did not speak. Behind the desk, Emily Reed covered her mouth, but not fast enough to hide the nervous smile. Ethan leaned closer, his voice sharp and polished like a knife wiped clean. "This is a 5-star hotel, Mom. We cannot have people walking in off the street, pretending they belong in the penthouse." A man near the elevators stopped rolling his suitcase. An older couple by the fireplace looked over, then quickly looked away. The chandelier above them hummed softly. The lobby smelled of lilies, floor polish, and expensive coffee. Angela heard all of it. The shoe grinding on her card, the soft click of Emily's nails on the keyboard, the little breath someone took behind her. She bent down slowly and picked up the card. There was a faint mark across the surface now. Ethan watched her like he expected her to break. She didn't. "I have a reservation," she said. Her voice was quiet, steady, penthouse sweet. Emily let out a short laugh before she could stop herself. Ethan smiled without warmth. "Of course you do." Angela reached into her bag and took out her phone. The screen lit her face in a pale blue glow. She placed it on the marble counter and turned it toward him. Confirmation number. Guest name. Angela Carter. Penthouse suite. Paid in full. Ethan barely glanced down. Anyone can fake an email. Angela looked at him for a long second. In that second, something passed through her face. Not fear. Not shame. Something deeper. The old exhaustion of being questioned in places where others were welcomed. The familiar weight of having to prove she was human before she could prove she was right. "I would like to check in," she said. That was all. No threat, no raised voice, no performance. Ethan's jaw tightened. He hated her calm more than he would have hated anger. Anger would have given him permission to escalate. Calm made him look cruel. Emily shifted behind the desk. "Should I call the assistant manager?" Ethan did not take his eyes off Angela. "Yes," he said, "and tell Rachel we may have a fraud situation." Angela heard the word fraud settle into the lobby like smoke. A young woman sitting near the window lifted her phone, pretending to check a message. She was recording. Angela noticed. So did Ethan. And still, he smiled. Because men like Ethan Brooks often mistake an audience for protection. Angela slipped the marked card back into her bag. Then she looked at the digital clock behind the desk. 11:47. 13 minutes before an overseas call she could not miss. 13 minutes before a deal worth more than this entire lobby would be discussed by people who knew exactly who she was. But here, under the chandelier, in her own hotel, she was still being treated like a problem to remove. Rachel Collins came through the side door with a tablet under one arm and a face already prepared for judgment. She did not ask what happened. That was her first mistake. She looked at Ethan, then at Emily, then at Angela. Her eyes made the whole trip from Angela's sneakers to her messenger bag, to the plain white shirt wrinkled from travel, to the tired calm in her face. By the time Rachel reached Angela's eyes, she had already decided the story. Ethan stepped beside her like a man pleased to have backup. "She claims she has the penthouse," he said. Rachel's brow lifted. "Claims?" Emily turned her monitor slightly, careful not to meet Angela's gaze. "There is an Angela Carter in the system," she said. "But it does not make sense." Angela's hand rested lightly on the counter. What part does not make sense? Emily swallowed. Her cheeks flushed, but not from shame. From fear of saying the quiet part too clearly. Rachel said it for her. The penthouse is paid through a corporate account. 6 nights. Private elevator access. Late checkout. Champagne package declined. Security note says no public attention. She paused, then looked at Angela again. That reservation belongs to someone important. The words moved through the lobby like cold air. Angela did not blink. And I am not important? Rachel's mouth tightened. I did not say that. No, Angela said. You let your face say it. A guest near the fireplace lowered his newspaper. The older woman beside him pressed her lips together. She had seen things like this before. Maybe in restaurants, maybe in department stores, maybe in banks. She knew the shape of it. She also knew the shame of watching too long and saying nothing. Rachel placed the tablet on the counter. Mom, we need valid identification. Angela removed her driver's license and set it down. Rachel picked it up with 2 fingers. She studied it under the desk lamp, turned it sideways, checked the edge, looked at the photo, then Angela's face, then the photo again. This could be anyone's license. Angela's eyes narrowed just a little. It has my name, my address, my photograph. Fake identification is common, Rachel said. Ethan nodded as if she had made a legal argument. Exactly. Angela breathed in through her nose. Her patience was not weakness. It was discipline. Years of boardrooms had taught her that the person who raised their voice first often lost control first. But the ache in her chest was real. It was old. It came from every doorway where she had been stopped, every counter where she had been doubted, every time her success had needed a receipt before her dignity could be recognized. Rachel slid the license back across the marble. I am going to ask you one more time. Do you have another form of proof? Angela looked at her phone. 11:52. 8 minutes. Across the lobby, the young woman with the phone shifted in her chair. Her name was Jessica Lee. She was a marketing consultant from Seattle, in town for a medical conference with her mother. She had started recording because her hands would not let her do nothing. Now she tapped the screen. Liv. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I'm at the Regal Crown in Chicago, and this woman is being treated like a criminal for trying to check into her own room. The viewer count began with 12, then 31, then 74. Ethan saw the phone and straightened his tie. That should have made him careful. It made him louder. Mom, this is private property. We have a duty to protect our guests from fraud. Angela turned to him. Protect them from me? From suspicious activity, he said. Rachel folded her arms. Nobody is accusing you unfairly. But appearance matters in hospitality. Presentation matters. There it was. Soft language, hard meaning. Angela gave a small nod, almost to herself. Emily looked down at the keyboard. For one brief second, something human crossed her face. Doubt, maybe guilt. Then Ethan glanced at her, and she typed faster. Should I cancel the reservation? Emily asked. Angela looked at her. Do not do that. Her voice was still quiet, but now it carried. Rachel leaned forward. Mom, if this reservation is fraudulent, we are authorized to release the suite. Ethan smiled. And call the police. The word police landed heavily. A bellhop stopped near the elevators. A businessman near the bar turned fully around. Jessica's live stream passed 200 viewers. Angela looked at the 3 employees standing behind the desk. 3 people with badges. 3 people with power. 3 people using that power to shrink a stranger. Then she reached into her messenger bag slowly and touched the edge of a leather portfolio inside. Not yet. She looked up at the clock again. 11:54. 6 minutes left. Ethan lifted the desk phone slowly, making sure everyone could see it. That was part of the performance. He did not need to make a show of calling security. He could have stepped aside. He could have asked for a supervisor from corporate. He could have taken 2 quiet minutes to verify a paid reservation. But quiet would not satisfy him. He wanted the room to understand who had authority. Marcus Bennett, front desk, he said into the receiver now. Then he hung up. Angela watched his hand leave the phone. His fingers were clean. His cuff was crisp. His name badge caught the chandelier light. Night manager. Ethan Brooks. He looked like the kind of man people trusted with keys, signatures, and access. That was what made him dangerous. Power did not always arrive shouting. Sometimes it wore a suit and spoke in policy language. Rachel stepped closer to Angela's phone, which still showed the reservation confirmation on the counter. "May I see that again?" Angela did not move. "You already saw it." Rachel's smile thinned. "If you have nothing to hide, this should not be difficult." Angela turned the phone toward her. Rachel picked it up without asking. Angela's eyes sharpened. "Do not scroll through my phone." Rachel froze for half a second, then gave a small laugh. "I am verifying hotel documents. You are holding my personal property." The lobby got quieter. "A hotel should know the difference," Angela said. That sentence landed harder than Rachel expected. Her thumb hovered over the screen. She looked at the confirmation again and something in her face shifted. Not regret. Concern. The email looked real. Too real. The formatting matched. The confirmation code followed Regal Crown's internal pattern. The account notes were written in the exact language corporate used for high-priority guests. Rachel felt a small warning bell inside her mind. She ignored it. Ethan leaned over her shoulder. "Sophisticated fake," he said. "People are getting better at this." Emily gave a nervous nod, but her hands had slowed on the keyboard. She had found the reservation. She had opened the payment history. She could see the corporate billing line. Carter Capital Holdings. Her stomach tightened. Carter. She had heard that name in training videos. Maybe in an email from headquarters. Maybe on the company intranet. She could not place it, and fear made her afraid to ask. Ethan glanced at her. "Cancel it." Emily looked up. "Are you sure?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. Ethan's eyes hardened. "Excuse me?" Emily's throat moved. "I just mean the reservation is prepaid. It says executive hold. There are restrictions on modifications." Rachel turned toward her. "Emily, do what your manager told you." Emily looked back at the screen. Her finger trembled over the keyboard. Angela saw it. She saw the young woman's fear, the need to belong, the terror of becoming the next target. That did not excuse her cruelty, but it explained the shape of it. People often borrowed someone else's prejudice just to feel safe beside power. Angela spoke softly. "Emily, if you cancel that reservation without cause, make sure the system records who instructed you." Emily's finger stopped. Ethan laughed once. Listen to her. Now she is giving legal advice. Across the room, Jessica whispered to her live stream. They are trying to cancel her room right in front of her. The viewer count climbed past 500. Comments flashed so fast she could barely read them. "Tell her to record names. Call corporate. This is discrimination. Do not stop filming." Jessica's hand shook, but she kept the camera steady. Then Marcus Bennett arrived. He stepped from the hallway near the elevators, tall, broad-shouldered, his Navy security jacket buttoned neatly. He was 37, former Cook County Sheriff's deputy, and old enough to know that the loudest person in a lobby was not always the honest one. He took in the scene before he spoke. Angela standing still. Ethan flushed with authority. Rachel clutching Angela's phone. Emily pale behind the desk. Guests pretending not to watch while watching everything. Marcus felt the old instinct rise in him. "Slow down, what is going on?" Ethan pointed at Angela. Suspected fraud, possible fake identification, fake reservation, refusing to leave. Marcus looked at Angela. "Mom?" Angela met his eyes. "Officer Bennett, before anyone touches me, removes me, or calls the police, I strongly suggest you check your employee handbook." Marcus blinked. "What section?" Angela's voice did not change. 14.3. Ethan rolled his eyes. There it is. Legal nonsense. But Marcus did not move right away, because Angela had not said it like a guess. She had said it like someone who already knew what was written there. Marcus pulled out his phone, but he did it slowly. He was not afraid of Ethan. He was afraid of being used. That was something years in uniform had taught him. Sometimes people called security because they were unsafe. Sometimes they called security because they wanted their bias to wear a badge. Ethan stepped closer. "Marcus, we do not need a policy review. We need her escorted out." Marcus kept his eyes on the screen. "You said fraud. I need to know what I am acting on." Rachel gave a tight laugh. "You are acting on management instruction." Marcus looked up. And if management instruction violates policy, the lobby shifted. Just a little. Ethan's face hardened. Careful. That single word carried a threat. Angela watched Marcus absorb it. She saw his jaw tighten, then settle. He had probably spent half his life making calculations like that. When to speak. When to stay silent. When keeping your job meant swallowing something bitter. He typed into the employee app. 14.3. The loading circle spun. Emily's eyes flicked between Marcus and Ethan. Her hand was still near the keyboard, frozen above the cancel button. Jessica's live stream climbed past 1,000 viewers. Across the lobby, Brandon Hayes rose from a leather chair near the bar. He was in his mid-30s, wearing a navy business suit and no tie. He had been reviewing contracts on his laptop when Ethan first raised his voice. For several minutes, he had hoped someone else would step in. No one did. That hope embarrassed him. He closed the laptop and walked toward the desk. "Excuse me," he said. Ethan turned, irritated. "Sir, this is a private matter." Brandon looked around the open lobby, at the phones, at the guests, at the security officer holding up the policy app. "Private?" His voice was calm, but it carried. "You are humiliating a woman in the middle of a hotel lobby. That is not private. That is public misconduct." Rachel's lips pressed flat. "Sir, please do not interfere with an active security issue." Brandon's eyes moved to Angela, then back to Rachel. "What security issue?" She showed a reservation. She showed identification. You did not believe her because she did not look the way you expected a penthouse guest to look. Ethan took one step toward him. "You do not understand what is happening here." Brandon did not step back. "I understand perfectly. I have stayed in enough hotels to know the difference between verification and harassment." That word struck the desk like a hammer. Harassment. The older woman by the fireplace whispered something to her husband. He looked down at his hands. A bellhop swallowed hard. Emily finally removed her finger from the keyboard. Ethan saw it. "Cancel the reservation, Emily." Her face went pale. "I cannot." The words came out barely louder than breath. Ethan stared at her. "What did you say?" Emily's voice trembled, but she forced it out again. "The system will not let me cancel an executive hold without a corporate override." Rachel snapped her head toward the monitor. "Move." Emily shifted aside. Rachel leaned in, typed her credentials, and stopped. A red warning box appeared on the screen. She read it once. Then again. Her face changed. Ethan noticed. "What?" Rachel's mouth opened, then closed. Nothing. But it was not nothing. Angela could see the moment Rachel's confidence cracked. Tiny. Almost invisible, but real. Marcus's phone loaded. He read silently. Then his eyebrows pulled together. "Ethan," he said, low and careful. "Do not start," Ethan snapped. Marcus turned the phone so only Ethan and Rachel could see. Section 14.3. Discriminatory treatment based on race, perceived income, dress, accent, disability, or other protected and dignity-related factors may result in immediate suspension pending investigation, termination for cause, and personal liability if the conduct creates reputational harm to the company. The silence went deep, not peaceful, dangerous. Jessica whispered to her viewers, "He just read the policy. They are in trouble now." The viewer count jumped again. 1,400, 1,700, 2,000. Rachel lowered Angela's phone onto the counter as if it had become hot. Ethan tried to laugh. "That policy is for obvious discrimination. This is fraud prevention." Angela tilted her head. "Then verify the reservation through corporate." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "We do not need corporate." Angela looked at him for a long moment. "Yes," she said softly. "You do." At that exact second, Rachel's tablet buzzed. Once, then again, then 3 more times. She looked down. Her hand tightened around the edge. The color drained from her face. Ethan saw it and hissed under his breath. "What now?" Rachel swallowed. "Corporate Communications just sent an alert." Her voice cracked. "They are asking why Regal Crown Chicago is trending for guest discrimination." Rachel stared at the alert as if the words might rearrange themselves into something less terrifying. They did not. Regal Crown Chicago. Guest discrimination. Live video circulating. Immediate status report required. Her thumb hovered over the screen, but she did not answer. For the first time since she walked into the lobby, Rachel looked unsure of where to put her hands. Ethan stepped beside her and lowered his voice. Give me that. Rachel did not hand it over. Ethan. Her voice was thin now. Corporate is asking for names. The word names changed the air. Emily looked down at her badge. Marcus glanced toward the cameras above the reception desk. Brandon Hayes folded his arms and watched Ethan with the kind of patience that made guilty men feel rushed. Angela remained still. That stillness bothered Ethan most of all. He needed her to look afraid. He needed her to argue. He needed her to become the angry woman he could point to and say, "See, this is why we acted." But she gave him nothing. Only control. Only quiet. Only a mirror. Ethan turned toward the lobby. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, forcing a smile, "we apologize for the inconvenience. This is simply an internal matter involving a suspicious reservation." Jessica spoke from her chair before she could talk herself out of it. "Then why did you mention her clothes?" Every head turned. Jessica's phone was still raised. Her cheeks were flushed, but her voice held. "Why did your assistant manager say the real guest would look different?" Rachel flinched. Ethan pointed at Jessica. "Mom, stop recording." Jessica shook her head. No one word. Small, but it cracked something open. The older woman by the fireplace stood slowly. Her husband reached for her wrist, but she pulled away. "I heard it too," she said. "You spoke to that woman like she was dirt." Her husband stared at her, stunned. "Margaret," he whispered. "No," she said, eyes shining. "I have spent 70 years watching people look away. I am tired of being one of them." The lobby went silent. Angela's expression softened, just for a breath. There it was, not justice yet. But the first honest sound in the room. Ethan's face reddened. "This is absurd." Marcus lowered his phone. "Mr. Brooks, we need to pause this interaction until corporate responds." Ethan snapped toward him. "You do not outrank me." "No," Marcus said, "but policy does." Rachel's tablet buzzed again. Then Emily's desk phone rang. The sharp sound cut through the lobby. Nobody moved. Emily answered with a shaking hand. "Front desk, Regal Crown, Chicago." She listened, her eyes widened. "Yes, Mom." A pause. "Yes, she is here." Another pause. Emily looked at Angela. The blood left her face. "I understand." She lowered the phone but did not hang up. "It is corporate guest services," she whispered. "They want the reservation restored and protected. They said no changes are authorized at the property level." Ethan grabbed the receiver. "This is Ethan Brooks, night manager. Who am I speaking with?" His expression shifted as the voice on the other end spoke. First annoyance, then confusion, then a flicker of fear. "No, I understand there is a social media situation, but we are dealing with a suspected fraud case." He stopped. The line had gone quiet on his end, but the person speaking had not. His grip tightened. "I did not refuse service based on race." Angela finally moved. She reached into her messenger bag and took out the leather portfolio. Not dramatically. Not quickly. Just carefully. Like she was done waiting for people to become decent on their own. Rachel saw the portfolio and frowned. Ethan saw it and tried to keep talking. Angela opened it on the counter. Inside were printed pages, reports, emails, complaint summaries. A board packet with clean tabs and corporate letterhead. The chandelier light slid over the first page. Operational Risk Review. Regal Crown, Chicago. Angela placed one sheet in front of Rachel. Rachel looked down, her lips parted. "How do you have this?" Ethan turned, still holding the phone. "Have what?" Rachel did not answer. She read the first lines. Guest satisfaction down 31%. Night shift complaints increased over 6 months. Repeated allegations of discriminatory treatment. Angela pulled another page, then another. Her voice stayed low, but now every person in the lobby leaned in to hear it. There have been 52 complaints tied to this property in the last quarter. Many were dismissed before they reached corporate leadership. That ended tonight. Ethan's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Angela looked at him. "You thought I came here for a room." She set one final page on the counter. "I came here for the truth." Ethan stared at the words on the page, but his mind refused to hold them. Operational Risk Review. Regal Crown, Chicago. Prepared for executive leadership. His name appeared halfway down the page. Ethan Brooks, night manager. 23 guest complaints. 4 internal coaching notices. 2 unresolved discrimination claims. He swallowed. "That is confidential," he said. Angela looked at him. "Yes." One word. Clean. Final. Rachel's fingers pressed against the counter. She kept reading, even though every line seemed to pull color from her face. Emily had stopped breathing normally. Short breaths now. Small ones. The kind people take when they are trying not to cry at work. Brandon Hayes stepped closer. Not to interfere, but to witness. He knew enough about corporate structure to understand what he was seeing. This was not a guest with copied paperwork. This was someone with access far above the hotel level. Jessica's live stream passed 5,000 viewers. Her mother, sitting beside her in a knitted shawl, whispered, "Keep recording, honey. But keep your voice steady." Jessica nodded. Angela reached back into the portfolio and removed a business card. She placed it on the marble. No flourish, no speech. Just a card. Angela Carter, Chief Executive Officer, Carter Capital Holdings. Rachel's hand went to her mouth. Emily whispered it before anyone else could. Carter Capital. The words moved through the lobby like a match, struck in darkness. Ethan shook his head. No. Angela opened her phone, tapped twice, and turned the screen toward them. The Regal Crown corporate website filled the display. Leadership page, board announcements, acquisition statement. There she was. Angela Carter, majority owner and chief executive officer of Carter Capital Holdings, controlling shareholder of Regal Crown Hospitality Group. The photo showed the same woman in a dark, tailored suit, standing in a boardroom with glass walls behind her. Same face, same eyes, same calm, only the clothes had changed. Ethan looked from the screen to Angela, his lips parted. "You are," Angela finished it for him, "the person who owns this hotel." The lobby went dead still. Even the air seemed to stop moving. The fountain near the center of the lobby kept running, soft water over black stone, but now the sound felt too loud. Rachel took one step back. Emily gripped the edge of the desk. Marcus lowered his eyes for a moment, not in shame, but in recognition. He had known something was wrong. He had felt it. Still, he had come close to becoming part of it. That truth settled heavily on him. Ethan tried to recover. Men like him always tried. "Carter," he said quickly, his voice suddenly polished and thin. "If we had known your role, of course this would have been handled differently." Angela looked at him. "That is the problem." He blinked. "Excuse me? You would have treated me better if you knew I had power. But I did not need power to deserve respect." The words landed softly. That made them worse. Rachel's eyes filled, but Angela did not look away from Ethan. "I told you my name. I showed you my reservation. I showed you identification. You chose not to believe me because of what you decided I was worth." Ethan's face tightened. "That is not fair." Angela tilted her head. "Fair?" For the first time, her voice sharpened. Fair would have been a clean check-in. Fair would have been a question asked with dignity. Fair would have been one person behind this desk, remembering that hospitality means welcoming the stranger, not measuring their value by their shoes. No one spoke. Angela turned to Rachel. "You had the system in front of you." Rachel's lips trembled. "I made a bad judgment. You made a human being stand in your lobby and defend her right to be here." Rachel looked down. Angela turned to Emily. "You found the reservation before anyone else did." Emily nodded, tears slipping now. "I should have said something." "Yes," Angela said, "you should have." Emily flinched, but Angela's voice softened. "And that is where learning begins. Not with excuses. With truth." The desk phone was still off the hook. A faint voice from corporate guest services called Ethan's name through the receiver. Nobody answered. Angela closed the portfolio but kept one document out, the acquisition audit. Her eyes moved across the lobby, guests, staff, phones, faces, some ashamed, some stunned, some hungry for the spectacle. But Angela was not there to perform revenge. She was there to expose a wound. She looked back at Ethan. This was never about one room. Her hand rested on the report. It was about what happens when people with small authority use it to make other people feel small. Ethan's throat moved. Angela checked the clock. 11:59. 1 minute left. Then she said the sentence that made his knees weaken. "And tonight, Mr. Brooks, your authority ends here." Ethan looked at the clock as if time itself might come to his defense. It did not. 11:59. The minute glowed in white digits above the reception desk, clean and indifferent. Angela's phone began to vibrate on the marble. The screen lit up. Tokyo Conference. She glanced at it, then silenced the call with one touch. That small motion frightened Ethan more than any threat could have. She was postponing something important, something bigger than him, and she was doing it because of what he had done. Rachel whispered, "Miss Carter, please. We can move this somewhere private." Angela turned to her. "You made it public." Rachel's mouth closed. No one in the lobby moved. Jessica's live stream had passed 10,000 viewers. The comments were a blur, but the people in the room no longer needed to read them. They could feel the world pressing against the glass. Angela opened the report again and placed 3 pages in a row. Ethan Brooks, Rachel Collins, Emily Reed, employer files, summaries only, but enough. She did not expose addresses. She did not reveal private medical details or anything cruel. That was not her way. Accountability did not need humiliation to be real. But the facts were brutal. Ethan's page listed repeated complaints about dismissive treatment, selective service, and aggressive handling of the disputes during night shifts. Rachel's page showed ignored training requirements, unresolved guest complaints, and a pattern of backing staff decisions without investigation. Emily's page was shorter, newer, less severe, but there was enough. 2 guest comments about rude laughter, 1 mention of mocking a customer's accent. Emily covered her mouth. "I did not know they wrote that down." Angela looked at her. "People remember how you make them feel. Sometimes they write it down because it is the only power they have left." Emily began to cry silently. Ethan pointed at the papers. "This is inappropriate." Angela looked at him. What was inappropriate was destroying a guest's credit card, threatening police without evidence, attempting to cancel a prepaid executive reservation, and using the word fraud because your imagination could not place a black in a penthouse. The sentence hit like a door slamming shut. Brandon nodded once. Marcus stood straighter. Rachel's eyes dropped to the floor. Ethan's voice cracked at the edges. "I did not know who you were." Angela stepped closer to the desk. "You keep saying that like it helps you. It does not. A person should not need to be your employer to receive basic courtesy. A person should not need wealth, title, or an attorney to be treated like they belong in a lobby." Her voice slowed. "Because every lobby is a test. Every counter, every front desk, every gate, every office door. It tells people what kind of world they have entered." The older woman by the fireplace wiped her eyes. Her husband finally stood beside her. His face was red with shame. "You are right," he said quietly. "We should have spoken sooner." Angela gave him a small nod. "Then speak sooner next time." That was not an insult. It was an invitation. Rachel's tablet buzzed again. This time, she turned it toward Angela without being asked. Angela read the message. "Corporate Crisis Team online. Board Council notified. Requesting executive direction." She took the tablet, typed a short reply, and returned it. Rachel read the message and went still. Ethan leaned over. "What did she say?" Rachel's voice was barely audible. "Suspend all local management authority pending executive review." Ethan stared at her. "No." Angela looked at Marcus. "Mr. Bennett, please secure Mr. Brooks's access badge and radio. He is suspended effective immediately." Marcus hesitated, not because he disagreed, because he understood the weight of it. Then he stepped forward. "Ethan, hand me your badge." Ethan backed up half a step. "You cannot be serious." Marcus's voice stayed calm. "Do not make this worse." Ethan looked around the lobby. No ally came. Not Rachel, not Emily, not the guests, not even the silence. His hand went slowly to his jacket. He unclipped the badge and slapped it onto the counter. The sound was small, but this time, the silence after it belonged to Angela. Rachel's shoulders shook. "What about me?" Angela turned to her. "Your authority is suspended too. You will remain available for corporate review." Rachel removed her badge with trembling fingers. Emily looked terrified. Angela faced her last. "Emily Reed, your access stays active for now." Emily blinked through tears. "Why?" "Because you stopped before you crossed the final line," Angela said. "And because fear can be taught out of a person if they are willing to tell the truth." Emily nodded hard. "I am willing." Angela's phone rang again. "Tokyo Conference." She answered this time. "Yes, Mr. Sato," she said, eyes still on the lobby. "I apologize for the delay." She paused. "No, the audit is not complete." Her gaze moved to Ethan. But I have found the problem. Ethan stood behind the counter without a badge, and somehow he looked smaller than he had 10 minutes earlier. Nothing about his body had changed. Same suit, same shoes, same carefully combed hair, but the room no longer reflected his authority back to him. The lobby had stopped obeying. Angela ended the call with Tokyo and placed the phone face down. Mr. Sato understood. She said to no one in particular. People who build long-term partnerships understand that culture matters. How we treat people in small moments tells them how we will behave when the stakes are larger. Brandon Hayes nodded slowly. That is true in every business I have ever worked with. Angela looked toward him. Your name? Brandon straightened. Brandon Hayes. Room 2840. Management consultant. I was not planning to be part of this night. Few people plan to become witnesses, Angela said. The question is what they do once they are. Brandon lowered his gaze for a moment. He understood the lesson. It was not only for Ethan. It was for everyone who had watched. Rachel wiped under one eye with the back of her hand. Miss Carter, I know this may not mean much right now, but I am sorry. Angela studied her. Sorry for what? Rachel blinked. For what happened? Angela shook her head once. That is too easy. Rachel's face tightened. Angela's voice stayed even. Name it. Rachel swallowed. Her shoulders rose, then fell. I judged you by how you looked. I assumed you did not belong here. I used policy as a cover after I had already made up my mind. The words scraped on the way out. Everyone heard it. Angela gave a small nod. That is the beginning of an apology. Rachel looked wounded, but she did not argue. Ethan let out a bitter laugh. So now we are doing public confessions in a hotel lobby? Marcus turned toward him. Ethan. No, Ethan snapped. I made a mistake because she came in looking nothing like a typical penthouse guest. Everybody here knows that. I just said what others think. The lobby froze. It was the kind of sentence people regret before the sound finishes leaving their mouth. Angela did not react at first. Then she looked around the room. Is that true? No one answered. Angela let the silence stretch. Because silence had been the lobby's first language tonight. Silence when her card hit the floor. Silence when she was called suspicious. Silence when police were mentioned. Silence when dignity was being tested in real time. Finally, Margaret, the older woman by the fireplace, spoke. Some people may think it. That does not make it right. Her husband nodded, slowly this time, and it does not make it harmless. Angela turned back to Ethan. That is the wound, Mr. Brooks. You think bias becomes acceptable when enough people share it. Ethan's face hardened, but his eyes had begun to lose focus. He was no longer controlling the room. He was surviving it. Angela opened her portfolio again and removed a thicker packet. This location was flagged 6 weeks ago. Rachel looked up sharply. 6 weeks? Angela nodded. Mystery guest reports, customer complaints, employee exit interviews, social media reviews. The pattern was clear. She placed the packet on the counter. Guests of color questioned more often. Working-class guests assigned worse rooms. Older guests ignored when they complained. Staff using phrases like not our usual clientele and protecting the atmosphere. Emily whispered, oh God. Angela looked at her. Hospitality can become cruelty when it decides some people are atmosphere and other people are contamination. The words were quiet. They cut deep. Jessica's phone was still raised, but her eyes were wet now. Her live stream had become more than content. It had become evidence. It had become a room full of strangers learning at the same time. Angela turned to Marcus. You asked what your role was tonight. This is it, not force, judgment, not obedience, protection. Marcus nodded. I understand. Do you? He stood straighter. Security should protect dignity, not just property. Angela held his gaze. Good. Then she looked at Emily. And the front desk? Emily wiped her cheeks. The front desk is the first promise a hotel makes. Angela's face softened. Exactly. Rachel pressed both hands flat on the marble. What happens now? Angela looked at the clock. 12:04. Then she looked at Ethan, Rachel, and Emily. Now we decide who is willing to become better, and who only regrets getting caught. Angela did not raise her voice when she said it. That made everyone listen harder. Ethan stared at her as if the word better had insulted him more than suspension. Rachel looked down at her hands. Emily stood behind the desk with wet cheeks, waiting for judgment like a student outside the principal's office. Angela placed her phone on the counter and opened a secure video call. Within seconds, 3 faces appeared on the screen. A corporate attorney, a human resources director, a regional operations executive still wearing a sweatshirt, clearly pulled from home after midnight. Angela spoke first. I am at Regal Crown, Chicago. I am initiating an emergency conduct review. This call is being documented. Local management authority has been suspended. Security is present. Witnesses are present. Video evidence exists. The attorney leaned closer to his camera. Understood, Miss Carter. Ethan's shoulders dropped. Not much, but enough. Angela turned the phone so Ethan and Rachel could see the screen. You will each be given 3 options tonight. Rachel closed her eyes. Ethan's jaw locked. Angela continued. Option 1, immediate resignation. You leave the property tonight. Human Resources documents the departure as voluntary, pending final legal review. No public statement from the company names you personally unless litigation requires it. Rachel's breath caught. Option 2, termination for cause. The record will state discriminatory guest treatment, violation of conduct policy, and failure to follow verification procedure. Any future employer who verifies employment will be told you are not eligible for rehire. Ethan's face went gray. Option 3, full investigation. You remain suspended while outside counsel reviews every complaint, every camera angle, every internal message, and every prior guest interaction tied to your names. The attorney added, that may include depositions if civil claims are filed. The word depositions landed heavily. It sounded like courtrooms, fees, years, names online forever. Ethan gripped the counter. This is retaliation. Angela looked at him. No, retaliation is punishment for telling the truth. Accountability is consequence for causing harm. Brandon Hayes murmured. That distinction matters. Angela did not look away from Ethan. You have spent this evening calling me suspicious. You nearly used police authority to support your assumption. You tried to remove me from a property I own. If I wanted revenge, this conversation would look different. Ethan's eyes flicked toward the phone's recording. Then why do this here? Because this is where you did it, Angela said. The lobby held its breath. Rachel's voice broke. I choose resignation. The words came fast, like she had been holding them behind her teeth. I am not proud of what I did. I cannot defend it. She unclipped her access card and placed it beside her badge. Angela nodded once. Human Resources will contact you in the morning. Rachel covered her face with one hand, but she did not argue. Ethan stared at her. You are just giving up? Rachel looked at him through tears. No, Ethan. I am telling the truth before I lose the nerve. That sentence did something to Emily. Her crying stopped. Her back straightened. Ethan looked around, searching for another version of the room. A version where he was still right. A version where the guest admired him. A version where Angela was still nobody. It was gone. Fine, he said. His voice was flat. I resign. The HR director on the phone asked him to confirm clearly for the record. Ethan's face twisted. I said I resign. Angela nodded to Marcus. Please escort Miss Brooks and Ms. Collins to collect personal belongings under supervision. Retrieve keys, radios, and any property access devices. Marcus stepped forward. Ethan did not move at first. Then he walked, slowly past the desk, past the guests, past Jessica's phone. At the edge of the lobby, he stopped and looked back at Angela. You ruined my career. Angela's expression did not change. No, Mr. Brooks. Her voice was soft. You finally met the people your career had been hurting. For the first time all night, Ethan had no answer. Marcus led him away. Rachel followed, wiping tears from her chin. The lobby exhaled, but Angela did not relax. Not yet. She turned to Emily. Now we talk about you. Emily stood alone behind the desk now, no longer protected by Ethan's confidence or Rachel's title. Angela looked at her for a long moment. What did you do wrong tonight? Emily wiped her face with both hands. I laughed when you were humiliated. I knew your reservation looked real, and I still stayed quiet. I cared more about pleasing my manager than protecting a guest. Her voice shook, and I treated you like you were less than me. Angela nodded. That is the truth. Emily lowered her eyes. Am I fired? Not tonight, Angela said. Emily looked up, stunned. You are on 90 days probation. You will complete bias training, guest dignity training, and front desk procedure retraining. Tomorrow morning, you will write a statement for corporate review. Not a performance statement, a truth statement. Emily nodded quickly. Yes, Mom. Angela turned to Marcus. Mr. Bennett, you will remain on duty until the regional director arrives. After tonight, I want you moved into guest relations leadership. This hotel needs someone who understands that safety includes dignity. Marcus swallowed hard. I will not forget that. See that you do not, Angela said. Then she faced the lobby. The phones were still up. Guests still watched. The chandelier still poured gold light over the marble floor, where her card had been stepped on less than an hour earlier. Angela picked up that card from her bag and held it between two fingers. There was still a mark across it, a thin scar in black metal. She looked at it, then at the people in front of her. This is replaceable, she said. She slipped it back into her bag. Dignity is not. No one spoke. Even Jessica lowered her phone slightly. Angela's voice softened. I do not want anyone leaving here tonight thinking this was only about bad employees. It was also about silence. It was about who gets believed, who gets questioned, who gets welcomed, who gets watched. Margaret, the older woman, wiped another tear. Brandon stood with his hands folded in front of him, no longer a spectator, but a witness who understood the responsibility of having seen. Angela continued. Tomorrow, Regal Crown Chicago will begin a full independent review. Every complaint will be reopened. Every staff member will be retrained. Guests will have a direct reporting line to corporate. And no local manager will be allowed to bury a pattern, because the person complaining does not look powerful. The corporate attorney on her phone confirmed it quietly. We have it on record. Angela nodded. Good. 3 months later, the lobby looked the same from a distance. Same marble, same chandelier, same lilies on the counter. But the feeling had changed. Emily Reed now wore a supervisor badge. She greeted an older man in work boots with the same warmth she gave a woman in pearls. She checked names carefully. She apologized when the system was slow. She listened. Marcus Bennett stood nearby, no longer just watching for threats, but watching for discomfort. When a nervous guest hesitated near the desk, he stepped forward with kindness instead of suspicion. Regal Crown Chicago's guest rating had climbed. Complaints had fallen. Revenue had recovered. More importantly, the stories changed. Guests wrote about being seen, welcomed, respected. Near the front desk, a small brass plaque had been installed on the wall. Not large, not dramatic, just clear. Every guest enters with dignity. Angela returned on a quiet afternoon and stood before it alone. For a moment, she was back in that night. The shoe on her card, the laughter, the silence. Then she heard Emily behind her, speaking gently to a guest. Welcome to the Regal Crown. We are glad you are here. Angela closed her eyes. Healing did not erase what happened. It gave pain somewhere useful to go. She turned and walked toward the elevators, her old messenger bag still over her shoulder, her sneakers still soft against the marble. This time, no one questioned whether she belonged, and maybe that was the real victory. Not that Angela Carter owned the hotel, but that the next person who walked in tired, ordinary, and unseen might be treated like they mattered before anyone knew their name. If this story reminded you of a moment you stayed silent, let it change what you do next time. And if it reminded you of a moment when your dignity was questioned, remember this. You were never the one who needed to prove your worth.